ndinoda kuti nyika iziwe vanhu vangu inguva yedu hatingatadzi kubudirira mwari ari parutivi pedu rambai muchirwa. My hitters don't die, the real hitters gon' shine and my people gon' rise, 'cause we're born to win, I ain't saying but I'm saying. Loyalty's my favorite characteristic of God, but finding it in him is hard. It's like trying to find God. You're the only one in your camp with cheese. You pay for everything they eat. Man, that insecurity is deep. Now I ain't said no names. These are just theories. If you hear me, baby, it's home. You must admit it's kinda eerie, baby. Like them chemtrails in the sky. Ain't the selling the slaves, kinda like the combines. We say everything in moderation, but don't do it in moderation. The lies of a gluttonous generation. 10-year-old girl in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Of course, I want to welcome you to a magnificent Monday. I'm really excited. I get to dive in a bit deep with the Chief of Police for the Port of Seattle. Michael Villa is in the building. And so we're going to be talking about these positions they have there at the Port of Seattle. They're really doing the intentionality to bring more diverse officers to the port. So I'm excited I'll be able to talk with him and also just kind of chime in about this role that he's taken on now, officially the full-time Chief of Police for the Port of Seattle. So we'll be diving into his entire journey on the force. But of course, you guys, it's the top of the show. So it's a great time to tag and share this stream. Go ahead, just help us out here. Tag and share the stream with folks you feel could benefit from a daily dose of dopeness right here on The Day with Trae. And if you cannot watch us, we got you covered. You can listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network and The Day with Trae. Y'all will find me on Google, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, you name it. Pick your favorite platform and search for us. You'll find us there. Shout out to everybody who is tagging and sharing the stream and everyone who is sharing the podcast as well. We appreciate you. Appreciate understanding that people are tuning in from all over the world. That's really exciting for us here on The Day with Trae. So I really appreciate all of y'all doing that work. But I want to start the show with me always telling y'all to see yourself as a part of the solution. I love to be able to uplift the example of what that looks like in our community. And our very own Deontay Damper was out this weekend in Renton, and he was uplifting, the work that's being done there for the LGBTQIA community. Let's check out how all of these folks came together in community to make sure that this place stays exactly where it is, doing the work it's doing.
Saturday's cold weather and steady rain did not stop people from going to demonstrate their support for the LGBTQ community and Brewmaster's Tap Room in Renton, which was the target of an alleged hate crime earlier this week. The tap room has been receiving harassing calls and emails from right-wing extremists since it launched a monthly drag queen storytime event. Organizers of this demonstration say the far-right groups were planning to protest Saturday's drag queen reading. Renton City Council member Carmen Rivera is active in the community and decided to show her support for drag queen storytime, especially when she heard that those right-wing extremists were planning to protest on Saturday.
This business is right down the street from my house, and as a queer person, I thought it was important to check in with the community. I checked in with the community member, I checked in with the business owner, asked what support they wanted, if they would be comfortable with counter-protesters and in what capacity, and then just started working with community and was really impressed with the amount of community that was like, how can we help?
They don't want us to be at the table.
Converge Media's own Deontay Damper led some of the action.
This is important because our youth have an opportunity to be and see us as well as human beings. This is an opportunity for us to be able to walk with love. This year we already watched 6 of our community members get slain in a club for just being. This is giving an opportunity, this is us standing with the community members that we haven't, that aren't here no longer because of bigotry and hate.
The show of support was overwhelming for organizers and demonstrators alike.
Allies, community members, organization, elected officials, the huge support is overwhelming And it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel proud, but most of all, it makes me feel that my community is loved and appreciated by all. Seeing the allies out there coming up to me saying thank you for organizing this, but also the voices and the people speaking is something that is overwhelmingly good.
Denise Diskin is the executive director of the Q Law Foundation in Washington, which supports LGBTQ people who are in the legal system.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is Brewmaster's Tap Room has done a drag queen story hour for quite a long time. They do it about once a month, and it's followed by drag bingo. And we love when there are local community businesses that show out and support our community and really create space for our communities, because we're here too, and so it's great to share the cultural practices like drag that we have with our communities.
Jill Jones came from Auburn because she thought it was important to show her support.
I just want to be supportive of all queer people, and any attempts to be fair and treat them equally and love them, and also give opportunities for our children to experience all different kinds of people.
Phoenix Star is one of the founders of the Burnout Brass Band, a honk band that plays anti-fascist anthems at local bars.
This is our community. We're here to spread love, spread joy, drown out all the hate. We love our community here. It's an honor to be here. It's just been an amazing outpouring of love today. We didn't really know what to expect, but this has been like the best case scenario.
The expected right-wing extremist protest did not materialize, which did not surprise Councilmember Rivera.
I suspected that we were going to outnumber anyone who was going to show up to try to antagonize this amazing, beautiful drag queen story hour. I imagine we were going to outnumber them at least 5 or 10 to 1. They didn't even show up because they knew, I think, that there was no opportunity for any type of hate or vitriol with this much love and this much community for love and just for inclusivity.
Wow, that's what I'm talking about, y'all. Shout out to everybody who showed up to support Brewmasters. You know, again, it really fits in with what I'm always encouraging y'all to do, which is to see yourself as a part of the solution. And I'm so glad that Converge was out there, supporting. Thank you so much, Deontay Damper, for, being somebody who's not just talking the talk, you walk the walk. But also, I got to send a huge shout out to Carmen Rivera. She stopped by here, when she was on the campaign trail, and it's great to see her upholding her position as a council member, staying connected to the community, and ensuring that she's using her platform in a positive way so that different spaces of culture and community stay thriving out there in Renton. So shout out to you as well, Carmen, and again, everybody who came out there to support this amazing place that's doing great things for the people out there and giving folks a space to say, this is our place and we feel great about what we do here. I might have to come and check out one of those drag book readings. It sounds amazing. But shout out to everybody. It's great to see this. And again, I love to be able to uplift these amazing examples of not just collective voice, but people being a part of the solution, just coming out to their houses and actually being out in the streets to support something that they believe in. It's great to see. Well, of course, after this short break, I'm excited because we got the chief of police for the Port of Seattle, Michael Villa, is in the building. He's going to be joining me after this short break. We're going to be diving into several things going on at the port. You guys definitely want to stay tuned for this. You guys are watching The Day with Trae.
Join us this holiday season at the Fifth Avenue Theater and feel the power of love overflowing with The Wiz. Filled with soaring soul and R&B songs, it's an effervescent explosion of music, dance, and magic your whole family will love. Ease on down the yellow brick road with Dorothy as she learns home isn't really where you live, it's who you love. The Wiz at the Fifth Avenue Theater, November 19th through December 23rd. Tickets at fifthavenue.org.
Hey guys, Besa Gordon here, and before heading to Belize, Trae Holiday and I had to make sure we linked up with our good friends over at Market Street Shoes to, of course, grab a few things for the trip. From bags to socks, shoes, sunglasses, earrings, and more. Before going on any trip, make sure you stop at Market Street Shoes. Trust me, you'll find just what you need to make your trip not only enjoyable, but fashionable.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhaf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
A world of wonder awaits at Pacific Northwest Ballet's The Nutcracker. Treat your loved ones to the Northwest's favorite holiday tradition at Seattle Center's McCall Hall. Tickets start at $27. Visit pnb.org.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday, and I'm excited because it is always important for us to get the real insight. What's going on? You guys know we've been keeping messages alive here in terms of port diversity for a long time. So I want to welcome the Chief of Police for the Port of Seattle, Michael Villa. Hi.
Hey, Trae, how you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
You know, this is one of those things where it's like this. I'm honored because this is technically really your first interview since taking on the role, moving from acting chief of police to the full-time chief of police for the Port of Seattle. Tell us a bit about your expertise, being on the force and what you bring to the role.
Yeah, well, first of all, I was at the city of Tukwila for 27 years and moved up through the ranks and became the chief of police there. So I was a chief there for 6 years. And then about 5 years ago, I came over, a little more than 5 years ago, I came over to the Port of Seattle as a deputy chief. And so I was in that role for approximately 3 years and then became the acting chief. So I served in the acting position for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then just this past August was selected as the chief of police.
Well, I'm telling you, this right here for me is a real honor. It's because we've been so dedicated to stories about the need for more diversity at the port. And we've been talking about it in a wide variety of ways. But you kind of step into the role and there's a huge bill to fill, basically, right? In terms of what y'all need. Tell us a bit about that. Moving from acting to now full-on chief, you've actually seen some things, obviously, in the acting role. And since you've been there for over 5 years, you've seen some things in terms of some of the needs. Help us understand some of that foundation.
Yeah, so it is really a good police department. We had, I want to say 2-3 years ago, an assessment that was done of the police department. And so our commissioners did a resolution basically that would require us to have an assessment of the police department. It was a task force that we put together of multiple stakeholders, both within and outside the police department. We brought in a consulting firm, 21 Century Policing, to conduct that assessment. And really, after about a year-long assessment of the police department, they determined that we had a really good, highly professional police department. But there's always room for improvement. So in any organization, there's going to be room for improvement. So as they did that, they gave us 52 recommendations, a lot of things that we could improve. But again, nothing significant that they determined. You know, we have a fairly diverse police department already. Part of our goal and vision is to continue to maintain that diversity within the police department. And to make some improvements in some areas. And we really want to have an agency that where our diversity mirrors that of our community. That's ideal. And so that's part of our vision when it comes to recruitment. So one of the things that we did really since that assessment is we revitalized or revamped our recruitment team. So now we have 5, 6, actually people want to keep adding to the team, but we have about 6 of our officers that are part of that recruitment cadre. And they've really been, it's a very diverse cadre that's come together. They're very enthusiastic, very excited about going out into the community and recruiting candidates, good quality candidates, but also diverse candidates. And so we maintain that diversity within our police force. So that's one of the things that came out of not just that recommendation, but even our officers recognizing that, hey, we need to make sure that we can hire good quality officers. Just talking about staffing and stuff, law enforcement the last couple of years, I mean, we have seen significant number, of officers leave law enforcement. And it's not just the Port of Seattle, Seattle Police Department, King County. A lot of the agencies within our state and even nationally have left the field. And so there are a lot of vacancies that we're trying to fill. And when we fill those vacancies again, we want to bring in diverse candidates. And so our team has been working tirelessly, going out, like I said, in the community to the colleges. Recently, we participated in a diversity in law enforcement career day that was held in Renton. And so several agencies came together. And again, really targeting diverse populations, trying to build that awareness and interest in law enforcement, not just for the Port of Seattle, but for the agencies within South King County and King County, so that we can build, again, just law enforcement agencies that have that diversity that mirrors our community.
Yeah, that's important. But I got to be honest too, Chief. I mean, one of the things that I think is some of the biggest hurdles may be that level of interest, because there's been, unfortunately, this us versus them mentality that has stood very strong in certain communities, particularly those of the global majority. When we're talking about non-white communities, there is something that sometimes goes unspoken during these recruitment efforts. How are you guys dealing with that? Because that's sometimes could be the real elephant in the room, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real problem that we have to do in law enforcement and really within our communities. We have to do a better job of building those relationships, of building that trust. I grew up in a household where my father did not like the police. And I even remember as a young child him telling us, hey, if the police catch you, first of all, don't let them catch you. If they catch you, lie about your last name, because I don't want them bringing you home. And so don't let them catch you and lie about your name. And then of course I became a police officer later. But really for me, it was, went through high school. And again, just, he had experiences and I'm not sure what all his experiences were, but he had negative experiences with police. And so he just had that, his experiences. And because of that, there was a lack of trust for the police. I went through high school. I came out of high school. I thought maybe I'd be an engineer or go into business, something like that. Met a police officer, started talking with that police officer, developed a friendship, did a ride along. And it really was that awareness and interest that for me drew me in. So on the one hand, having a background where I didn't necessarily trust the police because of my dad's experiences. But then once I learned more about the job and acquired that interest, for me, it was, hey, I like what you said earlier in the show, as far as, I can be part of the solution. I can help. I can, those negative experiences my father had as a police officer coming into the field, I can make sure others don't have those negative experiences. And so that's one of the things, just going back to your question, I don't want to veer too far away from that. Part of that is, we need to do a better job of developing trust. Part of that trust is having conversations, is understanding one another, is for us as law enforcement to understand, well, why is there that break in trust? And then how do we fix it?
Yeah.
And then developing those relationships. And then, part of this, as I mentioned earlier, we need these positions filled in law enforcement, not just with us, but other agencies. And so part of it is getting a diverse people into law enforcement that can then provide that exceptional law enforcement services to the communities, and it's going to take time.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, a lot of folks out there, and I'm hearing y'all, because they're like, there's so much in terms of the culture of policing that particularly throughout this country has really been under scrutiny and microscope. When we think about the litany of what we've experienced in terms of police involved deaths and shootings, all of that is a part of, I think, this entire, scope that you're talking about in terms of what you guys have to do. But I love hearing your personal story, that it took an officer to kind of say, hey, do a ride along. Let's build a friendship. Let me show you kind of what's going on with me. And that personal approach is, for me, what transitions it from this kind of transactional approach that we experience, like, oh my gosh, something has happened and I need to call the police for this transaction or this situation that's occurred in my life, versus it moving into something that's relational, saying, no, wait a minute, I know the police who are right here that are going to come if I'm called, if I have to call them, right? I know them because I see them in community. I've been able to connect with them outside of that tragic call I have to make when I have to, engage with them like that. And that, for me, is where I think overall the culture of policing has a bunch of work to do in terms of how they position themselves for those level of opportunities. Now, I know that there's a lot of work on y'all's hands, and listening to so much, particularly over the last couple of years, in terms of vacancies with police. You have a very unique nature when you're talking about the port. And for us, there's something that when we talk about the Seattle port, especially, it is a global hub, right? And so you guys are also dealing with levels of diversity that are even beyond what we may see in our communities because of it being such a major national and international port. And so you guys deal with a lot of other issues. Tell us a bit about why it's important for that diversity to be reflected in our communities, but particularly at the port where y'all are dealing with so much more diversity than many may see that are just out in a very specific community.
Yeah, and I love to talk about this. And prior to answering that question, I want to go back to my dad just to say that after I became a police officer, his attitude changed about police, which I'm thankful for. He actually lived with us for 19 years and really became a big supporter of the police. And I think just his perspective, changed on that. Also, something else you said as far as developing those relationships. And even when I became a police chief at Tukwila, particularly, though, it was important for me to reach out and to have a better understanding of specifically the Black community. And so there were a couple of people, Deshaun Quinn, council member at Tukwila, Dominique Davis, Coach Dom, and that I met with on a regular basis between those two. And really, they helped me understand better some of that culture and some of the experiences that either they or their family members had experienced. And so, while on the one hand, as someone who grew up in a family who didn't necessarily respect or appreciate or trust the police, my perspective was changed in that regard. On the other hand, listening to other communities and other cultures really helped me develop a better understanding. So anyway, I could go on and share just some of those conversations later, but it really helped me to better understand. And then it helped me to provide, I think, better service. And then not just me as a chief of police, but being able to take some of those lessons and convey them to my staff as well. As far as, hey, there's experiences, there's history, there's background that we need to be aware of when we are in those communities and policing and having those interactions. But I appreciate what you said about just developing those relationships and communicating and talking.
It's really key. And before you even answer, because that you're sending me on something that I think is so important. That's beautiful to hear that you're able to bring that experience to the port, which, to be honest, there is a disconnect because it's not connected specifically to a certain community. So I want you to maybe weave that into your answer in terms of, elevating diversity. You guys got 30 positions you need to fill, right? So that's really what you're here to talk about today. But I love the fact that you have that relational approach that you can bring to the port, where a lot of folks are like, look, we look at, international trade. There is a huge decline on, Black folks, African Americans, and others from the global majority participating in that. It's not so much that maybe the port police can do much about it, but I think it's important that you guys are understanding the need for diversity at a larger scale than just your police force when you're talking about the port.
Yeah, and we're part of the port. I mean, the port is, it employs over 2,000 employees just for the port. The police department is part of the larger port, and so even when it comes to increasing diversity, within the port, I mean, we're part of that. We're part of that effort. The Port of Seattle Police is, as you mentioned earlier, it is unique from a lot of municipal and county and state law enforcement in that, we have a very unique mission of protecting critical infrastructure, both at the airport and at the seaport. And with that infrastructure, it's a global gateway of very diverse travelers who are coming through both the seaport and the airport. And so even when we talk about mirroring the community for our department, well, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah.
Because our community is a global community. And so it's hard to, in a sense, put the finger on what would that exactly look like, other than to say that we want to have just a very diverse police force and workforce that will be able to provide excellent service to the community. But we are really unique. Can I talk about that for a moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so one of the things, so I was at Tukwila, as I said, for 27 years. And when I went to the Port of Seattle, one of the things that drew me there was that after doing law enforcement in a city, I really wanted to learn new things. And the Port of Seattle, with having a very specific mission and having that critical infrastructure, we're unique. We do all the traditional things that any law enforcement agency would do. We respond to calls for service, which range from property crimes to person crimes to assisting those that might be having a medical emergency that are on our facilities. Just a wide variety of things that most other law enforcement agencies would do. But we're very unique in we have that counterterrorism type of mission as well. And so we have explosive detection canines. So we don't have any tracking canines like a city would have, but we have 14 canines that are explosive detection canines that work throughout the airport. Primarily, we have a bomb detection team. So for those who might be interested in doing something like that, a bomb disposal unit, we have a Marine patrol unit out here on the Port of Seattle, outside of the Port of Seattle in the Maritime Seaport area. We have a dive team, bicycle officers that are at the airport. So we have these very unique teams as well. So it does differentiate us from a lot of other agencies. And then the other thing that differentiates us and makes us unique is going back to that global community that we have coming through the airport and the seaport, is our police department is really customer service oriented. And so you see officers at the airport helping people get from point A to point B. Traveling can be very stressful for people. Mm-hmm. And so even just helping them with extra bags they might have and giving directions and so it's very customer oriented, and we'll take the time to, as part of the Port of Seattle, we're going to take the time to try to make those travels as pain-free and as stress, to reduce as much stress as we can as people travel as well.
That's really important, and I'm sure very unique there, which allows you guys maybe more opportunities to be relational to a certain degree. And even if it is a bit on the transactional side, because how many people are flying? I mean, you may have some frequent flyers, but you know what I'm saying? A lot of it for folks is that one-time travel. So it's great to hear that. I know that there's so many other questions I have, and we've run out of time, but this is really exciting. It's great to meet you, to hear what you are bringing to this role, I think, which is so critical. And especially when we think about travelers and how they actually have an experience with us here at our port. So it's great to hear that. So much more that we could dive into, I'm sure, Chief Villa, but I really appreciate hearing your background story and you having some level of understanding of what it means to be relational. And I really am encouraging that as much as you can infuse that in every one of these positions y'all bring on, try to do that, because it's so necessary for more and more police officers to understand that that's an important part of their job, which I think sometimes has gone astray. So thank you so much. I want you to look right there. Folks are trying to figure out how they apply, how they learn more. You really laid out some amazing kind of segues, like these sections of the police force for the port that people may not have been aware of. So it's great to know that there's a diverse set of opportunities y'all are providing. Look right there in that camera. Just let them know. How do they apply? How do they connect?
Yeah, so to apply and connect with us, if you go to POSPD recruiting at portseattle.org, And so if you go to that email, send an email, one of our recruiters will reach out and contact you. If you want to apply to the Port of Seattle Police, publicsafetytesting.com, you could just go directly there and then check the box that is for the Port of Seattle Police. You notice that we do waive any fees on that. Some agencies charge a fee, but we don't. So those are two ways that you can connect with us.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on, moving from acting to, I guess, performing. You're in the role. You're doing it. Chief of Police for the Port of Seattle. Michael Villa, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Trae.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness, you guys. I could have talked for a very long time. Y'all know I got questions. But, of course, I'll be wrapping it up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
A world of wonder awaits at Pacific Northwest Ballet's The Nutcracker. Treat your loved ones to the Northwest's favorite holiday tradition at Seattle Center's McCall Hall. Tickets start at $27. Visit pnb.org.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhalf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
Everybody, sorry, we're live. Thank you. Sorry, we are back on The Day with Trae. This is why it's so important. I was just sharing this with Chief Villa that this platform right here is a way for folks to find that relationability when it comes to the police force. I have been one that says, yes, we need to figure out how to support community-based solutions around safety. I am always going to be that person because I understand that the solutions that are working in the community need to be scaled up. But it's great to be able to have a way to connect a bit more with this background stories of some of our officers, our chiefs, those who are leading the charge with these police forces so we can understand where they're coming from. Make sure y'all go. If you guys know somebody who's looking maybe for a career change or a young person who maybe needs to hear some stories around what got somebody into the police force, is there a way to kind of change the culture from the inside? I know there's a lot of change makers out there who are wanting to do that work. But some folks want to stay on the outside, understand, and some may want to understand what it looks like on the inside. And maybe there's a way to do that and become one of those officers that a young person can see themselves in. I'm, of course, inspired because Chief Villa shared his background that I think is so key. And I told him, how else would people hear that story about your father? So this is a great platform that I'm thankful that I get to usher that in. But of course, I'm inspired. I want y'all to be inspired. There's so many different ways to see yourself as a part of the solution. Deontay Damper and others were out there this weekend giving you another example of how to do that. Always be the one that is connected and plug into your community so you can be aware of the opportunities you have to be a part of the solution. And of course, y'all, for me, until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.